Skye Squad, we are back in the building, and yes, we are going to be breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture news and entertainment, and we're going to be breaking it down like only we can. Also, today we are introducing our membership portal where you guys can get extra content. Now, the charter members of this membership portal will be able to get a lifelong discount. So be sure to tap into the links in the description of this video or audio, wherever you may be listening to this. And if you haven't gotten the tea on my new book, The Wickedest Wives of Vicious Reality, it's available on Amazon.com right now. Now let's dive in. All right, Skye Squad, we are back in the building. And listen, today I got somebody special. I have been wanting to have this conversation for over a year. And we'll get to why. Well, there's a couple of reasons, actually. We'll get to one of the main reasons. But you're doing so many things right now that I also felt like the timing was also great, right? Because I think had I had this conversation with you last year, there are some things that you're doing now that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to talk about, like your podcast, We Sound Crazy. But before I get into that, I want y'all to know that we are talking to music, television, and film royalty right here. And if you don't know now, you know. This is Phil Thornton, okay? So I want you to know that this is a legendary music executive, film and television executive, and you have worked with some of the greats. Michelle Williams, Mariah Carey, Brandy, okay, Kelly Rowland. The list goes on. In the gospel industry, I got to let you know, that's how I first came to know you. I was working for a PR company called LA PR Group, and they work with a lot of gospel artists, right?
Lamar Ayers.
Those artists were on E1, and you were at E1 at the time. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, E1 it is more than a record label, actually, right? I mean, because at this point in time, it kind of encompasses, I feel like, TV and film as well.
Yeah, I mean, so E1, the music arm split off. It's now called Monarch Music now, but E1 Television still exists. They do a lot of shows. I actually did a show with them years ago, David and Tamla Mann show on BET. But yeah, so they're still very much, it's separate now. So, but it used to be all one company.
All right, so I've given my introduction, but I want to like, can we just take it back to where you first started? Because as we spoke about, like right before I got started, you started in the industry at the age of 12.
Yeah, 12. That's real.
Talk to me about how that worked, because I want people to take. There's a lesson I want people to take from that.
I will say I've always loved music, so that's like the start of all of it for me. Like I love music. This is one that I have music going throughout the house. In my car, the gym, like every I love music. And so as a child, I love music. I would listen to the radio station, hometown from Norfolk, Virginia. Shout out to VA 757. We in here, Tidewater, what up? But yeah, so that like every day, it's a station called 103 Jams back home. The call letters are WOWI. And I would listen to that station every single day when I'm like, headed to school in the car, like, turn on, 103 Jams. Or when I'm coming home from school, and I would just sit there, have my little kind of radio, my boombox, and just be listening to all the on-air personalities and just hearing music nonstop. And so one day when I was 12, I was like, yo, I want to go and see how this all works. Like, where's this music coming from? Where's this located? And so I remember calling the request line and talking with the midday personality at the time. Her name was Candy Eastman, and who I'm still in touch with to this day. I just saw her literally a few months ago in Houston. That's where she's based now, still on the radio all these years later. But Candy, I called the request line, which was 623-0103. I remember that number. And so I was like, hey, Candy, I introduced myself, and my name is, Philip Thornton. I'm a resident here in Norfolk, Virginia, and I just want to come and see how the station operates and meet you in person, because I'd never seen her. And I was just fascinated by the people behind the microphone. So fast forward, she says, yeah, just set it up with the front desk, schedule a visit, call the business office, 627-5800. And I remember like just setting it up, and my mom taking me down to that first time, and I was like, oh my God, like seeing all these people and, the promotions department and sales department and legal and programming and engineering. And I was like, all of this happens with this, what I'm hearing every day. So I was just, as a 12-year-old, my mind was blown. And I just remember, like, at the end of the tour, saying to Candy, because she was there when I did the tour, I was like, hey, Miss Candy, can I come back again next week? I just want to see more. And so next week turned into the next week and next week. And then the summer of that year, I was there every day. So up until that point, I had been going to the Boys and Girls Club during the summer. But during that summer, I was like, yo, this is going to be my new situation. This is going to be my new, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to go work in the music business. And so I realized that at 12, that's what I wanted to do. Actually, I guess, yeah, right around that time, just seeing it and understanding there was such a business behind it. And so that was the first of my internships. I had 3 internships before the age of 15. But yeah, that was the first one.
So, I wanted people to take away from this idea that, like, you didn't sit around hoping and wishing for this to happen. Like, this is something that you took the initiative at 12, mind you. Okay. That this is something that a lot of times, a lot of us grown-ups can't even wrap our brains around. But this idea that you at 12 took the initiative to call, okay, but to be persistent about it, okay, to ask to come back. So I want people to take away from just that story alone, just the idea that you got to be persistent with what it is that you want. And you got to, know where you want to go. Because I remember listening to Oprah talk about that. Like, you got to understand where it is you want to be.
Yes.
How did you come to understand that at 12, though? Because at 12, I don't quite remember what I wanted to do.
I was, again, music was the core and the foundation, but I just always knew I was different, and I appreciated that difference. And I also knew that I didn't want to, like, my mom worked, 3 jobs, working for the housing authority and working for the Coast Guard part-time, and then working on these kind of as one of the people that worked in the apartment leasing apartments. Like, and then my dad worked at the post office, and I was like, man, with all due respect, I'm grateful for them, and that's the path that they chose, and that's the path. But I just knew I didn't want that. And there's nothing against it, it just wasn't for me. And I just knew then, and seeing my other relatives, some work for the city, some work over here, like different. Everybody had like pretty much 9-to-5 jobs, like just more standard blue collar, which again is great. I just knew that wasn't for me. Yeah. And so I was just like, man, I need to figure out how to make money in this music business. That was what, and I'm literally thinking this at 12 years old. So I just started reading a lot and reading a lot of the trade publications like Billboard at the time and Hits and, Gavin magazine, which is another publication. So yeah, I just really was, I didn't have all the answers, but I knew that I wanted to be in music and I was going to figure it out. And again, Virginia, we had some of the best, some of the most talented, amazing, creative individuals, i.e. Pharrell Williams and my sister Missy Elliott and Timbaland and Danger and Knots and a bunch of people. Shout out to Chris Brown on the Tappahannock side and D'Angelo and Richmond and, the Clips. So it's a lot of great creativity, but as far we never had, the infrastructure there. The closest we saw infrastructure was like when Teddy Riley was in Virginia, had his studio there. So you had a lot of people coming to town in the early 90s. But as far as like a record label or agency, like it's just, we just didn't have that outlet. So the radio station was kind of like my outlet and my way to kind of just get introduced to the industry that I was like, I gotta be in this. I gotta figure this out. So yeah.
So I have another question. You had a hand in working with Pharrell on the Voices of Fire, the Joy song. Was that correct?
Yeah, I worked with Voices of Fire. I signed them when I was at RCA Inspiration, and yeah, Pharrell. I've known Pharrell since I was 15. Like, so Pharrell's like 6-7 years older than me, but we were friends because we all lived in Virginia. I lived in Virginia Beach at that time, and I knew Chad Hugo, who was his producing partner in the Neptunes. So literally, Chad lived like a neighborhood over from my neighborhood, and Chad went to my high school, to Kempsville. Pharrell went to Princess Anne, and we had, Chad and I had a lot of mutual friends And that's how I ended up getting connected. One of my good friends in high school, his sister was best friends with Chad. So that's how I met Chad. And then Chad, of course, I'm in the industry at this time. So people knew me from the radio station. They knew me from just kind of, being working for the magazine. And then at this point, I was interning for Arista. So when I met Chad, because Chad was still DJing at that time. And so we met, connected. And one day I was at his house. The studio used to be in the bed, like a room over the garage in his parents' home. I don't want to say the name of the neighborhood because I think they still stay there to this day. But it was the studio was set up in that room over the garage. And so one day when I was there hanging out, his producing partner, aka Pharrell, came in. He's like, "Yo, Phil, meet Pharrell. Like, this is my partner. We did Neptune, blah blah blah." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I remember seeing Pharrell at Teddy's studio, but we had never formally met until Chad's house. So I've known Pharrell since then. When I was in college doing college radio, Pharrell, fun fact, one of the reasons I do the podcast / radio show, We Sound Crazy, Pharrell is one of the biggest inspirations behind that. So he was always the one back then when I did college radio would say, "Yo, you need to do this. Yo, you got to keep doing this. Like, we need you on the radio." So every time, honestly, guys, true, but I got too many witnesses that it's like, every time I run into Pharrell. Me and Kelly Rowland, for example, were in Miami at Live nightclub one night, and we run into Pharrell, and Pharrell's like, "Yo, we need you back on the radio." And I was like, "Huh?" Like, bro, I'm doing big things now. But all I can say, I've known P since literally 15. So working with him, again, I've been in the studio with him a ton of times, him and Chad at Master Sound Studios, and we really developed a friendship and stayed in touch. And then obviously as I grew, he grew. We kind of, went our separate ways, but it's all love. And every time I see him, it's all love. And anytime I've ever called him, it's all love. And so one of those times was Voices of Fire. And that was like, when the show came, I was like, "Yo, this they from the home, they all in VA. I need this." So of course I made the call. And of course, because of the history, and then his uncle was familiar with me kind of more so from my gospel resume and the people I work with. So everybody was on board. And so I signed them to RCA Inspiration during my time there. So, yeah.
That's crazy. It's so funny. Like, I just remember working with LAPR Group, and I'm thinking at the time, because you only know your role, right? And so I keep hearing your name, and I'm like, okay, so he's like big in the gospel industry. Listen, I ain't go past that point because I'm doing my work, right? Not knowing the full breadth of history. So as I'm preparing for this, I'm like looking and I'm like, researching, obviously, and then I'm checking out the podcast. And I want to go back to something you said when he said, we need you back on radio. How did you feel, and what made you decide, okay, now is the time to do it? Because you got all these other things going on. Yeah. We talked movies, which we'll talk about in a bit, and we're gonna listen. There's an R&B Divas thing that we got to discuss here. I want the audience to know, but we'll get to that. But what made you say, okay, now is the time to do it? When I got all these other things going on, I've done all of these other things, and what made you say the time is now for We Sound Crazy?
I love telling stories. I love telling stories when I'm producing a TV show or I'm producing a film, or even my time as a songwriter, because a lot of people don't know I used to write songs, hit records for the record. You see some of the plaques on this wall in this room I'm in now. So I love telling stories. And Chuck Harmony, Claude Kelly, and Timon Bacon are friends of mine. And we used to just hang out in the studio. Chuck and Claude had been in Nashville for a couple years. I was a big inspiration for them to move to Nashville. Like, y'all need to come here. It's a wave here. Just get on this wave. It's Black and country. I told them years ago. And really? So they moved. Yes, you can ask them. So literally to the point, they moved on my street. My address was 1320. Claude was 1311. Chuck was 1410 on the same street. So that's how influential I was with the movie to Nashville. But to say their studio, we would just go and listen to music. They would play some of the records they had been creating on different artists. And then we would just be like, "Oh my God, you remember that time when such and such, put out this record in 97. And then we go on YouTube and kind of just like, clowning and like, "Oh my God, listen to them chords. Oh my God, that bridge is crazy." And so we just were having these conversations. And then sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, let me call such and such." And just like, I'll be on speakerphone, like, yo, Kelly, we in the studio now watching this old Destiny's Child. And it's just like stuff like that. And then one day I was like, light bulb, we should record this. And that was 2019. That was 2019. And this was pre-pandemic. And so we started doing it, and it was audio only at that time.
Okay.
And so we started just the same format. Like we were just, talking, playing music, talking, talking shit and just awesome, having a good time and talking about our experience. And then I would just randomly like, let me go through my phone and see who's going to pick up. And so that's where it started, the guests coming in. But I literally would just randomly call people. Thank you to everybody who answered. Kelly Rowland comes to mind because Kelly always takes my crazy calls. Coco, my sister Coco of SWV, like a lot of people in those early episodes, Dave Hollister, because Dave even, we talked because I know Dave since being in Virginia when he was in Blackstreet. And so, I called him one day after we were talking about Before I Let You Go and recording that song. And he was like, Phil, remember you were in the studio when we did that. And I was like, I was in the studio. So again, it just became this whole thing of us sharing our journeys and our stories and our friends' journeys and stories. And then it just kind of continued. We just kept doing it. And then we started getting, more, a little bit more attention around the pandemic. And then post-pandemic, kind of like 21, we started like, let's do video. Let's add the video component into this and just let people see what we look like and capture our friends on camera. And it just, like I said, we started getting more sponsors and more opportunities. And fast forward, like I said, and I would say one of those defining turning the corner moments was Tevin Campbell's interview. And that's when we landed on the Shade Room. And so that just opened up a whole nother set of eyeballs and opportunity. And it's just been going and growing and continues to grow. So really excited. But that's a little bit of the We Sound Crazy backstory. It just started as us, hanging out, talking shit in the studio. We just said, I was like, let's press record.
How does it feel now being the person who is sort of managing things in the background, right? Like having a hand in all of these different opportunities for a lot of these artists to now kind of being more of a face. I mean, if you knew who you were, you knew your face, right? But now we talk about like the masses now knowing more about you, right? How does that feel like as opposed to the roles that you've taken in the past?
You know what? It's still tough for me if I'm being very honest because I'm so used to being behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I'm used to just keeping my head down and doing the work. But what I've come to learn is that me sharing my journey and my story hopefully inspires and helps someone else that's like, I want to do that, or I can do that. I want to be a music executive. I want to be a TV and film producer. I want to be a songwriter. I want to do everything that he's doing times 10. That's why I do it. And so it's less about me. And like I said, sometimes it's just like, oh my God, when I see us on the blogs and different platforms, and the show's been picked up from everybody from TMZ to Breakfast Club, every single neighborhood talk, Shade Room, Jasmine Brand, Hollywood Unlocked, all of them like Baller Alert, they show love. And it's like, whoa. And of course, we get the criticism, you know what I mean? Because we're opinionated. we sound crazy many times, more times than not. So, but I've learned to just take it. It's just people paying attention. Paying attention. You comment. I like it. You know what I mean? You don't like some of the things I say. I told y'all years ago, Brian McKnight was an asshole. So now everybody comes to the party. But I started talking about this years ago. We Sound Crazy. But because of our run in LA years ago. So, but again, I embrace it, and I embraced it in front of the camera now because it's like between We Sound Crazy, and even when I was doing Uncensored for TV One, I did a number of episodes, the Shirley Ralph episode, Master P, and Tevin Campbell, a bunch of people. But again, as a part of that experience, I also had to be on camera because it's a part what we call break the wall. So I was like, oh, okay, this is their push. I was like, you know what, embrace it, because I look at some of my inspirations, people like Will Packer and Tyler Perry, Miss Ava DuVernay. There's some people that I admire that I look up to on the creative side, but even on the music side, Mr. Clive Davis, L.A. Reid, Miss Sylvia Rhone, John Platt. Like I've learned that they've also been very intentional about how to build and manage their profile by way of certain interviews and periodicals. So and I've talked to them about it. Like a lot of these people are really close friends and mentors to me. So I've asked them, like, they were like, Phil, you just keep doing what you're doing. Like, it's working. And you're such a unique executive because you can not only do the music, but also TV and film, but also you have the ability to do the in front of the camera. So I just embrace it. It's like, I'm uniquely, who God created me to be. And I'm just like, hey, I'm embracing it. And hopefully it just inspires someone.
What because you worked with so many people in the past, right? And I think just listening to you talk about like, you know, knowing Chad and Pharrell back in the day, you know, Teddy
And
Riley,
Missy.
sort of
Yeah.
being in that space, right? And then seeing these people like get to the place where they are now. And you've had a hand in so many of those experiences. What do you look for now in the generation of music that we're in currently, right? Because I feel like the music industry has changed a lot, right? But are the foundations still the same, right? In terms of what makes a great artist these days, and who do you feel like exhibits those qualities right now?
I will tell you, I look for authenticity. I don't care what genre of music. I just met with an artist last week in Atlanta, a potential signing that I'm looking to sign to my new venture. And I was blown away by her heart, the music, her perspective on just where she's writing for. It just was so refreshing. And I was like, oh, this is so honest, but yet so real. And she can sing. And I listened to the arrangement of her vocals and backs. And I was like, you are truly an original artist. You're not trying to be this one. You're not trying to be that one. And so that's what I look for. I look for authenticity, originality, and just people that are really like, hey, this is who I am. Now, can we as labels and partners kind of add value and kind of help with the presentation and help with pushing that? Yes, that's what I look for. So that was just, but I look for authenticity, originality, and just work ethic. Because that's a lot of times where I've noticed that some artists that I've worked with over the years, the work ethic is not what it needs to be, respectfully. And I've had some pretty intense conversations with those artists that just you got to wake up and do the phoners. You got to wake up and do morning radio. You got to hit the gym. You got to be on that treadmill, singing, just getting that stamina, getting that vote, like taking care of your instrument. Like if you're a singer, like you got to know, okay, well, I got to do vocal warm-ups. So let me get up a little extra early so I can make sure that when I go to morning radio, if they put me on the spot to sing something, I'm prepared. Or also, if I know the dairy is not good for my vocal cords, I'm not going to have so just different things of just taking care of yourself. But also, I'm going to go to the media coaching. I'm going to take all of the tools that the label is providing to me to be the best that I can be. And because I've witnessed the best, I've been around, Destiny's Child and watching them and how just they really do the work. I've watched Usher. I've watched so many people that just are excellent, and Bruno Mars, who's a home. Like I've watched so many people over the years. I'm like, oh my God, like there's a common theme there, but it's the work ethic. That work ethic, the authenticity. Like they all have that. I mean, they're uniquely who they are. When you hear Beyonce, Kelly in the show, you know it's them by the harmonies, by their distinct voices. You know Bruno's voice. You know Usher's voice. You know Chris Brown's voice. It's just I really admire that. And as far as who I admire today and who I love, I love Victoria Monet. She's really one of my favorites. I'm loving just everything that she's, first of all, an amazing songwriter, but now her artistry, I'm just seeing that evolve. Yeah. And what she and Sean Bankhead have just continued to create time and time again, but the visual presentation is like, it's crazy. I like Lucky Day, like him musically. I don't know him, never met him or worked with him, but I like what he's doing. I like Lucky. There's who else do I like? That I feel like, of course, some of the other people are like Jasmine. I still listen to, who's been around forever. I've known, So I don't consider her one of the new ones, and Victoria's been doing it for some time. As is Lucky, they're just kind of floating to the top. But there's some talented individuals out there. I listen to a lot of music, and on the country end, I'm loving Tony Evans Jr. Okay. I think he's special. I like Shabuzi, Willie Jones. Just thinking about some of my country friends that are kind of emerging and doing some great things. Of course, the Warren Treaty are Michael and Tanya are freaking incredible. So yeah. Like that's I listen to all types of music. So I'm just, but I feel like the future looks bright, but we've got to get back to respecting the art. And so one of my frustrations from working at different labels over the years, to me, my humble opinion, became too reliant on just the numbers, the data. What's bubbling on TikTok this week? What's bubbling on YouTube? And that to me should be one of the methods that you consider when signing an artist, but it shouldn't be the sole factor. And in many ways, for some people, that is the sole factor. And that's not for me. I still like to make sure, can you sing? Can you perform? Like, are you gonna be can you sing on key? Are you gonna be pitching? Like, there's things that, like, to me, there's a certain bar and a criteria that it's just there. And I just like, and like I said, I can go so many different ways, but in gospel and that world, I just want everybody to just be original. Like, I had the pleasure of signing Maverick City years ago when I was at Sony. And once that took off, everybody wanted to kind of create their version of that and sounding like that. And it's like, no, that's what God called them uniquely to do and to bring to the masses. That doesn't mean you go and copy and paste and do your own diluted version of that. And again, if God called you to do it, but so each genre, like, I feel like has their challenges, but I still believe that there's bright spots in each genre. Definitely in gospel, some of the best, most talented vocalists that you'll encounter. But yeah, I just want everybody to get back to just being original and authentic. Yeah.
Well, bridging the gap between music and television, I gotta ask you about R&B Divas. This conversation came up last year. This is when I really wanted to have the conversation with you.
Okay.
But at the time, I was like, is he gonna be willing to really, talk about it? You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because I'm always iffy when I ask somebody, hey, or would you be willing to have a discussion? Because I don't ever want it to feel like the conversation is just about that. Because I want people to know so much more. And this is just one aspect of it. But I also talk about reality TV. So I know my audience is also going to want to hear about something that we all loved. And there's nothing like it on television right now. I don't care what you like. There's nothing like that on television for us anymore. What hand did you have in that? And what was your feeling about it when it was on?
Well, I answer the first part. What hand did I have in it was very instrumental in the development and the pitching and the selling of the show. And I'll rewind. I always give acknowledgement and special love and shout out to Faith Evans. Faith Evans is who brought me the idea. I didn't know Nikki as well. I'd seen her in passing over the years, and we even did a trip to, she's a part of a package that I orchestrated years ago with Coco of SWV, Shanice, and Nikki was on that trip. So but I still didn't know her. That was Faith's friend. So Faith came to me with the idea. And at this time, I was producing a few shows for TV One. And I just did a show with Lisa Ray, the real McCoy, that was on the network. And unfortunately, there was some contractual matters as we were entering into the next season with Lisa Ray that Lisa Ray and TV One couldn't get on the same page. As a result, the network said, we're not going to move forward with this show. So it created a hole for them. They were like, okay, so we were banking on this show coming back. What do we do now? And simultaneously, like I said, Faith had brought the idea to me. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. And she was like, yeah, I think this is a story needs to be told. And all these amazing women are super talented. And so we took it out to a few different networks, and a lot of them wanted to do it as the Faith Evans show, and kind of as the other ladies more of a supporting cast. And Faith was, she's a loyal one. She was like, no, these are my sisters. We're doing this together. We all equal billing, blah, blah. And TV One saw the vision. And so, again, I already had history with them. I'd done several shows with the network at that point. So they were like, well, we trust Phil. He's done Lisa Ray. He did I Married a Baller, which was with Taj of SWV, and her husband, Eddie George. And I'd done a few other specials. So there's a level of trust there. And the network executive at the time, she believed. And the network president at the time, Wanya Lucas, she believed. And so we were able to get the green light. And we started, hey, it was one of the things. It was like the timing, because Whitney had just passed. Yeah. And earlier that year, and that was kind of like the initial genesis of like how we got into the show. It was like these women coming together to create this album honoring Whitney's legacy, and the proceeds went to Whitney's school and her, not for profit. So because a lot of the ladies were there that last night we saw Whitney at Kelly Price's Grammy party, because I was on that Thursday night / Friday morning, and Whitney passed that Saturday. So, and then Faith was really, really close with Whitney, as well as some of the other ladies knew her as well, but Faith was really close. So it was just something that it just created the initial foundation of like, this is the heart and the spirit of the show. And we're coming together for this purpose, this album, but also to chronicle the journey of their individual lives and careers. Like, because some people hadn't seen some of the artists in many years, like, so they didn't know what Monifa was doing at this point, and what, Kiki Wyatt and Selena Johnson. So it was also like, a great way to kind of chronicle their life and journey, and for them to kind of expose, hey, I'm working on a new album, new music, and I'm a mother, I'm a wife, whatever. But it was their truth. And, it started out really good. It started out really good. It started out good, and I would just say I have excellent relationship with most of the cast from both Atlanta and LA. Quite a number of them you've seen on We Sound Crazy. I'm in touch with pretty much, like I said, a good number of them. And so I appreciate the experience. We did 3 seasons of Atlanta, 3 of LA. I learned a whole lot. I will say about not only just production, but just reality in general, like, which I had done at that point, quite a few, but it was just, I still learned. It was a great learning lesson. So I don't regret it. I wish things would have ended differently. And I wish that some people would have just embraced the opportunity and saw the value for what it is, like, and what it was, like, because it wasn't, as many times on different shows you hear, oh, production. I will say the times when production or my colleagues overstepped, I was the first one to say, y'all, we got to get out. Like, this, you don't need to produce these ladies. Like, they have enough personality and enough going on. You don't have to. And there was a situation I remember at the fashion show. I think that it was like a Cravato show that Nikki had done. And there was one of the producers that really did something that was, inappropriate, and tried to instigate something for the scene. And I had to, he and I had a pretty heated exchange, because at the end of the day, I didn't sign up to do anything that's going to negatively portray Black people. If you look at anything I've done before that, or anything I've done after that, that's just not me. I love, I have friends that produce different types of television. I don't judge them. It's just not for me. And so that's one thing that I've had to be at peace with. And yeah, could I've made a lot more money on the reality side of things, but I was like, that's not me. I'm not trying to do that. And so when I'm a part of, different people making accusations about, oh, production, or the Wizard, all this shit, I'm like, yo, this is all Walt Disneyland, Walt Disney and Disneyland to me. This ain't real. And if you look at the history of certain people who make certain allegations, you will see that it's a consistent pattern. Like, I've never been in a group where there's a revolving door. It's not my reality. Like, some people have. So it kind of says, like, is it people in the group, or is it you? And again, so I'm just giving that as an example. Not singling anybody, but again, so sometimes I've seen groups with revolving doors, and I question that, over the years with different individuals. But R&B Divas specifically, great experience. Loved working with most of the ladies, and for the ones that I didn't have the most pleasant experience, I still learned something from that. So I don't regret it. It's just, again, some people would start out, we weren't friends, and then when the show concluded, we still ain't friends. So it's okay, you know what I mean? But the reality is, it was a great opportunity. I see it was a springboard for people to really rediscover people like Selena Johnson and Kiki Wyatt, and even Monifa. Like, I mean, I'm looking on my shelf now. We won a GLAAD award for the episode when Monifa married Therese. Like, that was groundbreaking at that time, and just to show, this, same-sex relationship on TV, on an African-American targeted network. So we made so many strides and so much history. I don't regret it. I wish some things would have ended or went differently, but yeah, it's part of the journey.
Is there ever any opportunity that it could be done again? And if so, who would you see on it?
You know, I've been asked about this show ever since it went off the air. I promise you, it's not a day that goes by if I don't get a DM or I'm tagged on some page on IG or Twitter. And as I've said before, even last year when I got into, I guess, a little bit of trouble with the network, I just said,
I feel bad. I feel bad about that because I felt like I was very for me, I was very what we doing? How we gonna get it back? Like, let's go.
Well, yeah, again, and my response again, it wasn't throwing anyone on the bus because I've had people hit me all the time for different projects, or even like, hey, Phil, or how do we get such and such on the BET Awards to do the such and such tribute? Oh, I'll tag Stephen Hill at the time, who was an exec over there, or Jesse Collins. So to me, that situation was no different. When I saw the post, I'm like, oh, you're talking to the wrong person. Like, I'm not holding it up because people think for some reason, because of some of the rhetoric and some of the lies that have been spread by former cast members, that I'm the one holding things up. Completely false. Completely false. Just so you know, without getting to the full weeds of how the business is structured, we all basically benefit. It was an equal situation. So you don't. I can't hold up something that I don't own. I'll just leave it at that. I was a work for hire, like the other producers were work for hire. So I don't own the name. The network is in control of R&B Divas. TV One, that's who owns it. That's who has the right to bring the show back. All of our deals expired years ago. So in no way is it me. It's not Faith, Paul Coyal, Adam Reed, the others. We're not holding it up. It's really the network, and the network has to basically say we want to bring it back. And I know the show, candidly, was very expensive in their eyes because of the music clearances. That's one of the reasons why they didn't want to bring it back. And two, the network went under new leadership. And you know, people come in and they have their own ideas and things. So when the network had new leadership, the person who greened it obviously departed and went to another network, and then the new team came in and basically said, we're going to change the direction. We don't want to have as much reality on. It doesn't re-air well, doesn't repeat well. Again, I don't know if that was opinion or fact-based. I'm just giving it to you as it was given to me. So they started doing a lot more of the made-for-TV movies, like the Mickey Howard and the Barge, movie, Bobby DeBarge, and like more true crime, which again apparently does well for them. So reality wasn't as high as on their priority list, and it's expensive because of the music clearances and the salaries for the people involved. So it was one of their more expensive shows that they didn't feel like repeats well. So do I think it should come back? I think it's room in the marketplace for it. Do I think it should come back in that network? If they're not interested or can't afford it, I think let it go to somebody who may be interested. And would I be involved? Ooh, probably not. So yeah, it's just sometimes, you know how it's like a relationship that you could like serve its purpose, but would you really go back to one of your exes 7, 8, 9 years later and say, you know what, we should try this again? Some people may. I'm just at a point where I learned a lot from that relationship, and I've moved forward, and I've done a lot since then, and still continue to sell projects on all tiers, streaming, linear, theatrical. So in some ways, do I think there's still amazing women that should be able to share their story by way of a vehicle like that? Yeah, I believe it. I think it would be great. And I think when I think of people like LaToya Luckett or, Tamar Braxton or even Victoria Monet, and there's some other people I think they're just very honest and who have the vocal and just to hear, the overall pedigree to really be on a show like that. There's some people that immediately come to mind. But I just think that, and I know Lifetime, I know they were interested in doing something in that space. And I heard Bravo. Obviously, Bravo took their stab at it with Queens of R&B, with SWV and Escape with Mona Scott Young. So I just, everyone's kind of doing their own version of it. Carlos King did the encore, at BET a few years back. But R&B Divas, I wish it could come back. I just think it's so much that has been said and done. And I just don't even know if the cast in the original form would even be wanting to come back. So if it's like a reboot or reimagined version with some new people, probably be what's best for the franchise. And maybe you keep one or two of the OGs, you know, in the mix. But I hate it because it's such a good show. Even when I see the clips on social media, and you know, I was like, man, again, to the network, why isn't this up on streaming platforms? I've asked that as well. Like, why isn't it up on, why? I mean, people got, they ripping at this on YouTube, but why not have it so people can actually look at it? Because clearly the numbers and the people are telling you pretty much a decade later, we still care about this show because there was some funny moments. But again, you had amazing cast members that had compelling stories and were willing to share. And I just, you know, it's really interesting, like I said. But when you look at just a lot of the people from that show and you hear the journeys, a lot of them will tell you, like, that was who it was. It wasn't, you know, the manipulation of production. It's like when we had those moments, we acknowledge it and we stopped it from those individuals. But people tell you that's why I did Kiki Wyatt and censored. If I was this, you know, evil person, also if I'd be called the wizard, she wouldn't want me doing the uncensored. She wouldn't. Selena Johnson wouldn't be on my show. Monifa wouldn't have called me recently. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see them, like Kelly Price, I've seen, you know what I mean? Like, these, like, I have no ill will towards any of them. Like Leela James, I just, you know, I saw her recently. Natasha Scott, like, I mean, you think about, I just saw Mila. And for the ones that I felt were wronged, even if it wasn't my fault, I still apologize for their experience, because at the end of the day, in most cases, I was that person on the front line assembling the cast for the next season, or like sitting down with the artist and their manager and saying, hey, this is the show, this is what we want to capture. So when things went left in some cases, or things didn't go exactly as I outlined, I catch the brunt of that. And here's the thing, I'm okay with that, because that's part of being the boss. So I'm not in any way pointing the finger. I'm just acknowledging, hey, you know, that happened. I'm sorry, and here's how we're going to avoid it going forward. And then some people we just can never have a reset with, and then some people just had their own level of insanity.
You know, I'm gonna leave that there. I want to.
What would you like to see, though? I want to know, who would you like to see if it was to come back? What would be your recommendation for R&B Divas? Would you want a new cast? You want some of the OGs? Like, who? What would be your? You go ahead, Richie Skye. You the producer. You the EP.
I would definitely want to see Monifa come back. I felt like she was such a, like, the way she opened up Lil Mo, I would like to see.
Oh, was great. Yes. Was great.
I just think the two of them on the same show.
Yeah.
Man, like, I think that would be amazing. Selena, because I felt like she had, like, there's a thing that I feel like with reality TV stars that, like, you're going to say what you want to say and you're going to stand on it. And I felt like she had that. I should say she has it. And then I loved your idea about LaToya Luckett. I did. I love it, because I just feel like, you know, she has such an interesting trajectory with her career. Mm-hmm. I would love to see Latavia back, because I did feel like I felt like we touched the surface with her. I felt like we really touched this, and I feel like so much has happened since then that I would love to find out where she is now. So for me, those are some of the names that I feel like would make for good, like I'm talking like good TV, like not just.
I agree. That's good.
You know, not just fireworks. I'm talking like real story.
Compelling, real story. No, I love that. And Latavia is one of those people that I apologize to. I mentioned I apologize because we didn't get to capture the full breadth of her story. Like, she deserved more time, more seasons. I wish we would have returned for Atlanta, but we didn't get to really. It was all about, if she can't sing, is she gonna sing? It was like, and again, that was unfortunately what was captured, and others in the cast were like instigating that storyline. But the reality is, I wish she had more time to share her journey and to your point, where she is now, because she's been through a lot. And then having LaToya there, who's her homegirl, like who's her homie, would also, I think, also bring another level of confidence, and just, you know, on camera and just everything, just having one of her good friends there. So that's a great cast. Great cast.
Mm-hmm. I think that you start there. That's in my opinion. So we talked a little bit about music, we talked a little bit about TV, but I want to talk about like film as well, because you've got some projects coming up. And you said something about there was an artist for a new venture. So can you tell us anything about that? Like, I'll be listening to all the things, the clues.
You listen. we listening to all the things. I will tell you the new venture. I'll reveal more in the upcoming months. It's just everything is very much. I'm keeping it tight-lipped now, just because I like the announcements to lead the charge as far as new venture. But TV and film continues to be a huge priority for me. I formed a new television and film production company under my new umbrella, which is called Three Diamonds. And me and my partner, Trell Woodbury, who's done a lot of scripted content. We're working with a number of great partners across all types of content. So it could be scripted, it could be unscripted, it could be concert documentaries and specials. There's nothing. We're doing everything from thrillers to Christmas movies. So it's like a wide range, and working with some amazing top tier talent in the process. So I'm really, really excited about that. And then we just announced the home for the Luther Vandross Never Too Much documentary that I executive produced. Shout out to the amazing Dawn Porter, our filmmaker. She is incredible. I want to work with Dawn on anything else I can work with Dawn on. And Jamie Foxx and Datari Turner, my brothers, like they were a godsend, and I appreciate them. And we're looking to do a lot more together as well. But the Luther documentary will air on 3 different platforms. That's right, 3: CNN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and Max, which is used to be HBO Max on the streaming side. So great story. If you're a music fan, if you're a Luther fan, even if you're not a Luther fan, not as familiar, just see the story. It's just about someone who's arguably such a prolific songwriter, producer, artist, one of the best vocalists, in my opinion, in the history of music, and one of my favorites, and was absolutely the soundtrack of my household growing up. On Saturday morning, my mom, like when it's cleanup time, that Luther and Anita Baker was definitely playing. So, but Luther, that was a dream come true to tell that story in that documentary, and just grateful to everybody who participated. Mariah Carey, I won't spoil it all, but Mariah's in it, and she did it just the way she just came through in the clutch and last minute, and made it just so seamless and easy for everybody. So I just heard Dionne Warwick and Valerie Simpson, Clive Davis, so many people that you'll see in the doc that were just really, really just grateful for their time. But I'm very proud of it. I've been getting a lot of calls because we screened it at Tribeca Film Festival recently. And, we've got BET screening coming up, and Essence coming up, Martha's Vineyard coming up. So we hitting the circuit. So you'll see it somewhere. And then you'll obviously see it on those 3 platforms top of next year. So
Okay. So we got a lot to look forward to. Anything else that you got coming down the pipeline before we go?
What else I have?
That you can tell us.
Yeah, it's just so much. Like I said, I'm the new company. It's like this TV and film. It's touring, and then we'll have some music involved as well. But on the touring front, Kirk Franklin reunion tour. It's Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, Clark Sisters, Marvin Sapp, Fred Hammond, special guest Miss Kiara Sherry Kelly. Tickets on sale now, livenation.com. I'm a partner in that venture, Undivided, which is our touring arm. Shout out to Norman. Shout out to just everybody, the whole team, man. So yeah, it's a lot. So more to come. And like I said, just really, I'm at this legacy phase in my life of really, I appreciate all of the experiences in each of the buildings that I've been in. But now it's time to bet on me again, because I was an entrepreneur first. It's about betting on me and just really tapping into those relationships that I built for 30 years at this point. And so I really, it's long overdue in its time. And I'm grateful for my journey in the building. I've encountered people such as you, Richie Skye. That's how we met when doing my E1 time. And you literally connect with so many great people. Now it's like, well, how do I build this empire for myself and for my family and for my kids? You know what I mean? Like that matters to me at this phase. And it's always mattered, but I understand that I needed to really acquire a certain level of information and just know-how and ability from going inside the building. So I don't regret it. I'm excited. I'm still on great terms with each of the companies. The Luther Dot was funded by Sony Music, my former employer. And then UMG, where I just departed, they're actually one of my first clients on my TV film production company. So I'm still going to continue to do documentaries and biopics for them. So again, it's like I value relationships. They're super important because, that your name is all you have in this business. So if anybody watching and trying to get in any capacity, I don't care, as an executive, as an artist, as a songwriter, as a producer, engineer, manager, your name, value your name. that integrity is key. And treat people well. I don't care like if they the intern like I was, or they the CEO, or like DJRichieSkye, you was a part of the grassroots street team out there. You know what I mean? Like holding us down. Like again, everybody, you just don't know. Everybody has a starting point, and that we both are examples of that. But we continue to do the work and operate with integrity and treat people with respect. And look how just the doors are opening. So I just want to encourage everybody, just put some respect on your own name and make sure that you treat people right and just operate with integrity, because that's super important in our business.
I could think of no better way to end this conversation today than that. Phil, I want to say thank you. Like, you have given, first of all, whenever I do an interview, it's actually for me, but because I get so much from it, but I think in doing it, the viewer also gets a lot from it. So I just want to say thank you for contributing not only to my growth today, but to the audience's growth, and just, relaying these stories because they're important. And I'm glad that we get to document these things, because I think it's super important for people who look like us to see and to hear what's possible. And that way they know they can do it too. So I just want to say thank you. Yet again, I have all of your information. It will be listed in the description of this video. Phil, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Let people know real quick where they can find everything else that they want to, like, if you want to like find the We So Crazy podcast. I mean, I got it here, but just in case that there's any place else that they can find it.
Yeah, just We Sound Crazy, WeSoundCrazy.com. We Sound Crazy across all platforms, YouTube, TikTok, X, IG. Check us out. We have great conversations with some of your favorite musicians, executives, just people in culture. So check us out. And we're on the radio on Sirius XM, but WeSoundCrazy.com for all the details. And I'm across all platforms at Billionaire 1911 on IG, and then Billionaire everywhere else. So yeah.
All right, y'all. Skye Squad, we will catch you in the next video.